Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to World Today. I'm your host OmerKhalid. But today is an important day in Pakistan. Why do you say it's important? Well, there are many other developments occurring as well on different arenas, but at the same time, there is a two-day meeting that is occurring of the COMSTECH, of the Science, Technology and Innovation part of the COMSTECH, where a draft implementation mechanism of of the agenda for the year 2026 is being implemented. This is a two-day conference, and in this two-day conference, which the first day of it was today, member countries of 57 OIC states are talking about how to bring forward and how to implement new techniques in science, technology, and how to bring about innovation in amongst the OIC countries and how to bring that block forward. To talk about what has happened, what is COMSTECH, for all of you who might not have a better understanding of it, we've been joined by three important guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. But before that, let me tell you what COMSTECH is all about. This is a ministerial standing committee on scientific and technological cooperation of the Organization of Islamic Countries, and it was established at the third summit of the OIC that was held in Saudi Arabia in January of 1981. The President of Pakistan is the chairman of COMSTECH, and the secretariat is located here in Islamabad as well. Now let's go to our guests. On my very right is Dr. Shukat. Dr. Shukat, you are the Coordinator General of COMSTECH Secretariat. In fact, you're the head of the COMSTECH Secretariat in Islamabad. Thank you, sir, for having given us the time.
Thank you very much. And if you allow a small correction, the OIC is 57 countries.
Yes.
But what we have today is about 11 countries.
All right. Yeah. So you have a small
Plus
number
some organizations, OICs here and others. So about 15 different units are represented in the meetings today and for tomorrow.
All right, great. Next is our representative from the country of Malaysia, a very talented lady, Mrs. Shahnaz. You represent the International Division of MOSTI. Tell us what MOSTI is.
It's the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation in Malaysia. We're the leading ministries that's heading for COMSTECH.
All right.
Anything science and technology, but we bring together other ministries to get involved also.
All right, great. And our third guest is from our brotherly country, Turkey, Dr. Ergin. Dr. Ergin, you're the president of the Scientific and Technological Research Council of Turkey, also known as TÜBİTAK. Thank you very much, Dr. Ergin, to be here.
Thank you. Using TÜBİTAK sounds nicer because the whole name involves Science Technology Councils.
But you need to know what TÜBİTAK stands for all of our viewers as well. If you just put the acronyms, how can they understand?
Yes,
well, welcome to all three of your guests. Let me start with you, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, COMSTECH is a very important organization. A lot happens in it. It has certain objectives, it has certain aims, it provides very important training to the individuals as well under its Science, Technology and Innovation program. How satisfied have you been from the work that COMSTECH has been doing since its inception?
COMSTECH has done some good work. It could have done much better also. And our basic constraint has been funding, because it's all on a voluntary basis. And at the moment, 80% plus our funds come from the government of Pakistan. Malaysia is a regular contributor, and other countries also. Every dollar counts. So within that budget, we try and do things. We try and give advanced training in key thematic areas, even including science and technology policy, how to make that, emerging sciences and technology, genomics, science diplomacy.
What is genomics, sir? Because for all of those who don't understand certain terms and technologies, I will be constantly asking you during the course of the show.
Genomics is the study of genes.
All right.
And genetics, and whether it's inherited, how not we're talking of genetic manipulation. So let me put you in the background, the right context. This century we belong to biology.
All right.
The 21st century, because it is now using the tools of physics, computing, electronics, sensors, all of them coming together to make a whole new world.
Fine.
So the 21st century is going to be very interesting, very interesting, very dodgy also. One can be a little worried about genetic manipulation, but this is happening.
Fine.
So this is one example. If I had to give you a specific case, we had a special workshop to honor Dr. Qasim Mehdi. He's one of 34 people who's on a name plaque in Stanford for the Human Genome Diversity Project, and did a lot of work.
All right.
And interestingly, you could trace the origin of mankind going back about 300,000 years ago, where migration started.
That's
In
interesting.
the heart of Africa, where all have African blood, as an example. So we had people from Europe, UK, Cambridge University, USA, Italy. They all came to honor him and talk about this. So this is the typical format of our training workshop. We send out calls. People come from different countries. We have keynote speakers, specialists who come and talk. And it's a scientific plus brainstorm. What's happening? Can we do some foresight? What is happening? So, for example, 11 OIC countries are prepared to set up nuclear power plants. So we had a 1 week program with the IAEA. What about safety? What about applications in medicine and agriculture? What about regulation, regulatory practices? And so we talked about this, and I believe we had a program also.
Yes, exactly, with the Director General of the IAEA.
So like this we do all the time. Science diplomacy. With Scientific American, we had American scientists, the journal in USA, we had programs.
All right.
So we have all these programs, advanced techniques, and we also support conferences and workshops in other countries. And 9 countries we've supported in the last 12 months. Little things. Kuwait is having a conference on women in science. So we give them a few $1,000s. So the keynote speakers can travel from abroad and they can pay for that. Bangladesh does something, Azerbaijan, Turkey, by the way, is one of the biggest recipients of our conference support.
Yes.
But they're also very, very active. Iran, Azerbaijan, Egypt. So we support conferences in these countries.
All right.
We do all that. The purpose is not just to enhance the capabilities, but also to learn to meet each other and know one another. So this is the purpose.
Also to assess the human resources of each other's countries and to see where we are lacking so that we could take advantage of the human resources of the other countries.
And the best can learn from the best.
Exactly. And I think we've got 2 very good countries next to us, representatives from these 2 countries who can give us a few of the examples. Mrs. Shahnaz Shahizan, how important has your organization, the MOSTI, been for the promulgation of science, technology and innovation?
Oh, okay, let me start. Basically, we have a few cooperations already in place with various countries, be it bilateral or multilateral. But the latest one is Malaysia, under Standards Malaysia, which is under my ministry also. We won the board member seat of the SMIC, SMIIC, under the OIC, which is the Standards and Metrology Institute for Islamic Countries, meaning we set the standard for halal among other countries.
All right.
Yes, that's one of it. We have a lot to offer, such as we've done cooperations with under MTDC, our Malaysian Technology Development Corporation, with countries such as Egypt and other technical. What we do is basically we do technology transfers, capacity building, and we share of knowledge.
All right. And as far as sharing of knowledge is concerned, how much have you shared and how much have you imbibed from the other countries during all of these meetings that you've held under the COMSTECH?
Oh, the numbers itself, I can't really say right now because it's ever growing. Such as with Turkey itself, we're finalizing our MOU specific for science and technology development. So it's ever growing and always developing.
All right. Ever growing and developing is also the relationship between the OIC countries, because this forum is very important. And of course, COMSTECH is one of the important organizations under the OIC. Now, Dr. Ergin, your TÜBİTAK is a very important organization. And you've been, as both of our guests have enumerated, given a lot of input as far as scientific and technological innovation is concerned. As far as Turkey is concerned, how scientifically advanced do you consider your country to be?
Well, there are so many topics that you can work on. In some topics, Pakistan is way ahead of us. In some other topics, Malaysia is ahead of us. So this is dependent on topics. You cannot just put them inside a bag and say, this bag is heavier than the other one.
That's true.
And one thing that we try to share during today's OIC meeting, COMSTECH meeting, is that we have had a lot of different experiences. We are working with 46 different countries with 50 something, 57 I guess,
57, yes.
bilateral agreements, and one more will be signed with Malaysia soon.
Inshallah.
So what this means is that whenever we are trying to solve a problem in our country, we are working with 46 different other countries and their scientists and technologists to attack the problem. So as Professor Hans said, if you work with the best, then you become the best, and you learn from the best, and you do the best.
That's very important. Dr.
Yes.
Shukat Hamid Khan, when you learn from the best, you become the best. When you learn and work together with the scientists and organizers from so many important OIC countries, how much of knowledge do countries like Pakistan imbibe?
It's a learning process all the time. But please excuse me, let me return to one thing. Why are we meeting in the COMSTECH headquarters today and tomorrow? COMSTECH was mandated to hold the first OIC summit on science and technology in Pakistan. For various reasons it could not be held here. It was shifted to Kazakhstan.
It was held in September this year.
Yes, 10th, 11th September in Astana, Kazakhstan, and declaration came out. The 10-year program we had prepared was accepted for science and technology, and they asked COMSTECH to prepare the implementation mechanism and strategy.
All right. When you talk of that 10-year plan, Dr. Saab, tell us a little bit about the main points, the main aims and objectives of that 10-year plan.
Number one, you cannot have good science if people are hungry,
All right.
don't have access to clean water, are not employable. Not employed, but employable. They are not employable. And these are things which countries must undertake themselves. Number one. Number two, you cannot have good science if your social attitudes are not correct.
All right.
So
What do you understand by social attitudes?
For example, it's very easy to say, I'd like to replicate what's happened in Korea or Germany or Spain. You cannot do this. There have been major growth accounting studies in the last 20 years, and there's one conclusion. You cannot replicate those who have gone before. The conditions for entry have changed. You must dance to your own music, but you better make a good orchestra. So it is left to the country. So these four basic priorities, attitudes, education, health, basic, all things must be there before you can think of good science. And for good science, you need good education.
True.
Basically, from the school to the top. And this is fundamental to the whole thing. You can have silos of excellence, but it's not enough. You need a good broad base. And personally, I feel if you want economic advantage, because too many people nowadays look for economic outcome in universities, then the highly skilled technician, different skills, higher skills, is more valuable than a PhD. And this is one area we have neglected very badly in Pakistan.
All right.
And I'll give you the example of Malaysia. I visited them 10 years ago. You know that every company that works in Malaysia has to set aside 0.5% fund for retraining of its people. It goes into a national central pool, right?
Yes.
And they have to spend it on their people. If they don't, the government will use that money to train somebody else. So there is a constant improvement in capabilities.
Because everything is updated. Even the trainings are updated so that people are
Things
up to date
change.
on what happens.
Things change.
Yes.
So this is the basic principle we say. Next we say good education, good science. And here the faculty is the long pole in the entire tent of education. So focus on faculty. Equipment you can buy, buildings you can make. But if you don't have good faculty, you do not expect good outcome, good results.
That's true.
And also we are saying, please make the scientists civilized also, the engineers. Make social sciences and subjects compulsory for them, for the scientists and engineers, and make some engineering science modules compulsory for the social scientists, humanities and arts. You must learn to talk to each other, not past each other. So this is important. So the basic sciences, infrastructure, HR development, we have to say
Collaborative science programs
collaborative
as well.
science, building capabilities, exchange of scientists and so on. And we are saying, let's aim for 50 Muslim countries, universities to be among the top 500 by 2026.
All right.
At the moment, only 11 have this. We want 50 to be there. And it's
Understood.
within our grasp. Secondly, we are saying, and the big science programs, we talk about our pedigree, the glorious tradition, the past, astronomy and this and that. Okay, what are we doing now? So we need to go for some multinational, joint, big science program, they cost a bit, but it costs less if you join together. Why should one country set up a $350 million satellite? Join up with 3 others, say Turkey, Iran, Malaysia and Pakistan. Do it for 1/3 the cost. Then marine biology, high performance computing centers and gene banks. Pakistan is very lucky to have a wonderful gene bank, 36,000 accessions, including wild wheat, wild rice. And Uzbekistan has jumped at it. We've had meetings with them several. So we said, okay.
They also made a presentation this morning.
They did.
if I'm not wrong.
And PRC, NARC, we said, okay, we put people together. They take on, my field is not agriculture, we can't do everything. So they do it. IT, computer sciences, so a lot of things to be done. Look at, we talk of the energy power sector in Pakistan. Every country is going through a transition in energy and power. Retiring old plants, building new ones, going for renewable energy. Do you know, it's a matter of pride for us that Malaysia produces 15% of the world's solar modules. Number 3 in the world after China and Taiwan.
All right.
So we've just completed a renewable energy profile of all the countries. We also made a science profile in detail. Who does what? How good is it? You know, we've got 20 countries in mind, 8 we've completed.
All right.
So these are little things we do.
But it's very important to kind of talk about and work together, as you said, because it's only by working jointly that all the countries profit through the different initiatives that have been decided upon. Now, Mrs. Shahnaz Shaizan, a lot of eulogy was given to you and your country by Dr. Saab. How much of improvement has your science and technology department and the education of science and technology occurred in the last 10 to 15 years in Malaysia?
I mean, history-wise, we see the need for informal training, technology, vocational training, and so forth. So we collaborate with our Ministry of Education, Ministry of Human Resources, where we bring about training programs for technicians and master trainers.
All right.
So there is an ability there, a place where other country members can come in and we work together in terms of knowledge sharing there, in training of the master trainers. So other countries can get involved.
All right. All right. Dr. Ergin, Turkey being at the crossroads of Europe, and
one of the leaders in science and technology in Pakistan.
That was just about what I was to say, but you took the words right out of my mouth. One of the leaders in innovation and technology as well, Dr. Ergin. Turkey, when it works on the one hand with the OIC countries, on the other hand with the countries of the European Union and the West, how do you bring about that balance, and how do you bring forward the innovations that you've learned to the countries who do not understand or maybe do not have the same level of technology or scientific innovation?
Well, that's a very nice question. Because we have, on one hand, the Europe, on the other hand, we are tied to Asia. South Africa is, to the south is the Africa and Middle East. So it's a very whole different geography for us. We are one of the countries that got involved in the European Union framework programs for science and technology. Now, framework programs are 5-year or 7-year programs that dwell on a joint funding mechanism for science and technology. It started off with about 3.2 billion euros at the start.
Billion euros.
3.2 billion euros. And the 8th framework program, which is known also as Horizon 2020, now has a budget of 80 billion euros.
All right.
So each country contributes to this pot of fund, and they also then bring their own proposals for research. Now, there are, of course, priority areas that are important for the
What are the priority areas?
Well, there are specific things like the PRIMA initiative works on agricultural issues, integration of technology to agriculture. Of course, genomics is part of this. Energy issues are there, and there are various subtopics under energy, like nuclear energy. Some countries have retiring nuclear plants. So their scientific work and technological work is on how to dismantle old plants. But, for example, Turkey is building its own nuclear plants in a new fashion.
All right. What is the new innovation that you're bringing into the...
Well, we are acquiring our nuclear plants for the time being. So we don't have any problem with dissolving the old plants.
All right.
So, but we have to take care of into the environmental factors and so on and so forth. So each country puts in their agenda for science and technology, and the European Council decides on these are the top priorities. So then you try to align your own national priorities with European priorities. This is where the hard work comes in.
All right.
Because when you put together 28, 30 nations together, each one is going to have vastly different priority areas. That at that point you have to open up a second path. The second path is beside the multinational arena of Europe, you have to have bilateral agreements. So some of these agreements is going to serve as a stepping stone to jump into the big arena of Europe. You collaborate with the Tunisians, you collaborate with the Germans on different priorities for your own two countries. But once something comes up out of that, then you share it with Europe and say, whichever countries are going to gather around this table to come up with scientific and technological solutions. So there's a whole ecosystem of multinational, bilateral, inside your own national policies and work structures. What we are trying to do with COMSTECH during these 2 days is to establish a structure that's going to serve to the Muslim nations in a similar manner. But we have learned so much from the European experience as Turkey. The amount of money that we put in and the amount of funding that we got for our own projects showed a real misbalance during the last 30 years. Well, we used to put in about 100 and try to get 30 out of that, and if we got 50, we called ourselves lucky. Because cultural differences, social issues shape how you approach science. If you approach science as a purely political thing, then you cannot really succeed. And if you approach it as a purely technological issue, disregarding the basic science, it's again not going to work. So you have to understand how science culture works. And we have learned a lot from that. Now we are getting as much projects back as much as we are putting in the money for it.
Maybe a little more.
Maybe a little more. Maybe a little more.
But Dr. Saab, when we talk of science culture, this is a very interesting point that Dr. Ergin has pointed out. This science culture in different countries, even in neighboring countries, it is not the same. We all follow a certain agenda, we all follow a certain timeline, we all follow a certain mechanism. So, and also the needs of all the different countries are different. Some might have less needs, others much more than the others. How do you kind of come to a consensus when all of you get together under the banner of COMSTECH and throw out the different ideas that you have for innovation, for scientific achievements, for technology?
We had 6 hours of arguments today.
All right.
And we've come to some conclusions. Very interesting. Different differences, there were disagreements, but we seem to be moving towards the right path. What is the best way to do this? Who should be on the steering committee? Is the steering committee going to do the rowing also? Or they only meet twice a week and do the general guidelines?
All right.
What will be in the working groups? Who will do all the donkey works? How do we select scientists? How do countries get represented in the steering committee? So consensus has emerged.
All right.
And all the time we also knew in the background that without money, it means nothing.
Of course, money is very important
So
to turn anything.
the Islamic Development Bank has announced $100 million
All right.
for the S&T.
But what is the money that you've pledged for?
We are looking for about $650 million.
All right.
Where the money will be, and what we are saying is a country can put in 50%, and out of the 650 million, we can give you the other 50%.
All right.
This is the whole purpose. And Turkey has also made a very interesting announcement.
All
I'm
right.
sure it's unofficial, so we'll leave it unofficial
Yes.
until it's officially done by the parliament.
All right.
But I'm very happy, very contented, and this opens the way. I'm sure Malaysia is going to follow, Pakistan will follow, other countries will follow. We'll meet our target.
All right.
And one thing, sir, there's a lot of requirements for nurses, for
All right.
technicians, all kinds of people. And this is one happy news I want to tell you. Everybody realizes this, especially the 22 less developed countries of the OIC. They need help. It's not just scientific research we are talking about. We are talking about helping them rise up. Little things. Some countries don't have nurses. Tens of millions of population and only about 80 nurses in the whole country. A lot of little things we can do, we can help. This is what I think we shouldn't use the word, we should use the word science diplomacy, and this can have a big major impact on the lives of people. So a lot of things are possible, little things, and if the heart is big and the mind thinks straight, we can do it.
All right, that's very important. But all that you want to do also needs to be done under a certain ecosystem. I don't know whether you'll call it a scientific ecosystem or a social ecosystem of the different OIC countries that sit together under COMSTECH. Now, Mrs. Shahnaz,
sorry, they don't sit together under COMSTECH. They're here today to advise us and help us make.
But the steering
We're
committees
working
and the
together.
different.
The steering committee will be made up of countries and the leading scientific experts, leading planners and managers. They will be part of the steering committee and the working groups. And they are going to run the program.
But that, they will be from different countries as well. Of course. So, Ma'am Shahnaz Shaizan, one of the important issues is education, is technical training. Also, one of the salient features of the 10-year plan that has been decided upon is the uplift of infrastructure and human resource in universities and technical and vocational institutions. Now, how important has the contribution of Malaysia been locally in its own country in that respect, and what can it bring to COMSTECH in that regard?
I mean, over the past years, there's been huge improvements in our education. However, we're like also other countries, we're focusing more on social inclusion. We have our national policy on science, technology and innovation, where we're constantly updating it, and we're looking into social aspect of science to be included in our national policy. And also we're coming out with a H.E.A master plan where we work together with all the ministries, Ministry of
What
Education.
do you mean by the H.E.A master plan?
It's a basically we have a lot of action plans within the country itself.
Alright.
So there's a need for a master plan where everything is in line, inclusive of United Nations SDG and also COMSTECH, the way forward of SNT Fund, COMSTECH OIC H.E.A Agenda 2026. So the master plan will take into account all of this and basically guide our education system, in particular science and technology, towards that.
All right, that's interesting. Now, Dr. Ergin, among other things that has been decided upon in the 10-year plan, we talked about the infrastructure and human resource. We talked about collaborative research programs that you also told us a bit in detail as far as working with Europe and bringing that to the OIC countries and COMSTECH is concerned, because that experience is very important. But also the experience that is important and the input that is important is as far as energy resources is concerned, or high power consumption is concerned, or development of laboratory equipment is concerned, or planning for smart cities, planning for large scale urban growth is concerned, because you see a lot of people around the world, including in Pakistan, are coming to the big cities from the small villages. They want to help themselves and get better financially by coming to the urban centers. Now, how does institutions, organizations such as COMSTECH and of course your country, what has your country done on its local level, that is in Turkey, and what kind of expertise do you feel Turkey can bring about in COMSTECH as far as that is concerned?
I would like to approach the answer from a different perspective.
All right.
What you are hinting to is that what good is science and technology for the whole country and for all the people?
Yes, first of all for Turkey, and then how do you bring that to COMSTECH and the OIC countries?
Well, the thing is that scientists are curiosity-driven people. You don't build curiosity out of a need.
True.
It just comes from inside of you.
True. It's that passion.
It's that passion. So we should be able to give some way to these people with good curiosity. But that doesn't feed you. That doesn't produce the nurses or the energy that you want to strive for to go ahead with your country and with your people. So the basic question comes down to two little questions. One little question is this. When you have an invention, when you have a scientific finding, how do you turn this to the good of the people? Directly by economy, by energy and such. And the second question leans upon this first question. What kind of an institution can both feed the scientists and get their results and then turn it into a value that's good for the people? What we are trying to do with COMSTECH is to build this structure, which will, on one hand, get in nice people, nice ideas, education, academical publications, and then split from the other end, good for the people, for energy and economy. So this is the hard work that we are focused on for the 2 days. And once the structure is good, it's, what do I mean by good? It's resistant to anything that's non-scientific. So this is something that we even experience with our daily lives within ourselves. We want to eat too much because it tastes good, but we know that it's not good for health. It's again the same thing.
That balance needs to be brought about.
You need an upper perspective, a drive to take you to the results, and at the same time you should also feed the curiosity that's not driven by any need. So those are things that you have to put in balance in order to get something out of it. I think we did quite a bit of a good thing in Turkey. I have to explain a very small thing. This is a whole ecosystem, as you said. For the last 15 years, Turkey has been focusing on the input side. What is the input to the whole technology ecosystem? It's the human resources. We have tripled our human resources in 10 years in terms of full-time equivalent researchers. The amount of funding that you put into R&D, we have multiplied it 8 times. And since our GDP is also increasing, it came from about 0.4% to over 1.2% for the last 2 years.
All right.
We have funded a lot of paper building activities, but these are all input. And now we are trying to figure out how to boost the output out of this system. And that's taking a lot of our time to think about.
Input versus output, Dr. Shukat,
Sir,
is very important.
May I say something?
Yes, please.
Dr. Ergin used the word disruption, which science brings about. And you cannot predict the result, either in time or in value.
Yes.
For example, Einstein got his Nobel Prize not for the theory of relativity, but the photoelectric effect, 1915, I think. But the first photoelectric semiconductor material was made round about 1960s. Nearly 150 years later, now we have solar material and so on. So you don't know how science will go. That's one thing. But sorry, now coming back to your question.
No, what I wanted to say, Dr. Saab, was input versus output is something Dr. Ergin has enunciated upon and deliberated upon, and that's very important. The output, as you yourself said, that some of the results have come 150 years after the innovation was made. How to reduce that gap between input and output, in your point of view, and how can COMSTECH work in that respect?
First of all, things are moving very fast now. Never so fast, never so fast as is happening now in history. So things are changing every day. And there is this digital disruption, the digital revolution, the fourth industrial revolution that people talk about. And one of the things that has happened is manufacturing could be done anywhere about 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Not designing can be done anywhere. But you have to have the right people for that. So this is the new game, how to channelize this into the outcome side. But there's one caveat, a word of caution. You cannot expect your researchers to always have an economic outcome. It's not predictable. And this is bad for them because science is disruptive, as Dr. Ergin says. So you must allow some things to happen even when you don't expect an economic outcome.
All right.
So this is an issue, and this is being widely debated.
And for that, the countries need to continue, as you said, funding for such initiatives, because if you don't, then how can you know when and when the economic outputs would come out or would not, until you don't try?
And little things matter. For example, there's this NIBJ in Faisalabad. They come out with a paper 2 years ago, one of the most highly cited papers, phytoremediation. How do you clean up dirty water from the effluents from the industry, textiles and others? And they use plants, make polystyrene foam, hold, put the plants in there, roots go down about 1 meter, meter and a half, suck in all the toxins, all the chemicals.
That's it.
And 2 steps down, and you notice no bird will drink from the first tank, but the last one, all the birds go. They know where the clean water is.
clean water.
it doesn't take power, no electricity.
So you see, the thing is that even birds can innovate themselves, that update themselves on how to
Very
use
smart.
technology and how to use it properly.
The
So we human
birds
beings
the
are
birds
even
are smart, and
much
another
better.
thing, you use the word smart cities. You know, cities have an economic, let's say, intensity or outcome 3 to 5 times more than the rural areas. Coming together of physical infrastructure, electronic infrastructure, and human infrastructure. And this makes cities the centers of growth for the future.
True.
So you've got to plan them carefully. And you've got to plan for water. For example, I understand Istanbul, not a drop of dirty water goes into the Bosporus. Karachi gets 45 million gallons per day. Hardly any recycling done at all. This is unbelievable. You know, so and cities are getting the seas are getting polluted. The plastics everywhere. The fish are getting destroyed. So one of our programs is, let's map the marine biology environment around the OIC countries. 10 million square kilometers is waiting to be mapped.
All right.
10 million kilometers. And waves, sedimentation, climate change is having its own impact, you know, all these things. So a lot of things can be done, doesn't cost much.
But the initiatives need to be made, and for that,
Let me
COMSTECH is
share
very
another
important.
story with you, sorry G,
Yeah.
guess
All right.
About 1972, when the first OIC summit was held here in Lahore,
Yes.
we came to know in the press that the Shalimar Garden, some of the fountains weren't working, and they were to dig them up and put in new ones.
All right.
So the Chairman Atomic Energy Commission called the right group. Can we do something? Sure. They went there, made some short-life scandium glass or something, radioactive like sand, put it in the water, it flowed down, took a counter to see where the radiation, it had a life of 2 days only, half-life, and suddenly knew there was a blockage here. They dug them up, beautiful ceramic pipes going back 450 years, sealed with lead. And they were put back, cleaned, there was some dust inside, mud inside, and that's it.
All right.
The whole 16th century, 17th century garden was working again.
Yeah.
You did
So
not have
that-
to destroy anything.
So you see,
little things.
yes,
The difference.
innovation. Innovation brings about revolutions in the industry, in science and technology, and that's very important. These little initiatives, as you said, you talked about the first OIC
And
summit.
just to say, give an example, sorry, I'm cutting into our guest time. One of the leading IT companies in the world now, most innovative, is in Pakistan. And they've beaten Indian giants in IT like Infosys in contracts in the Middle East and China. You know, so a lot of
Do name their companies.
Netsol.
All right.
Netsol. And in cyber security, a Pakistani. He had this company FireEye. He
Malaysia
became a
also.
billionaire a few years ago. Young
Yes,
man.
you see, there's the difference between the countries. Like you mentioned earlier, some countries are more advanced in one particular technology or science and innovation. Another is in a different field. So what we can do is cooperate and meet somewhere
That
and
is
share different
That
types
is
of
true.
field. Yeah.
Pollution is one thing that is very important. Dr. Saab emphasized on it time and again through different examples. As far as Malaysia is concerned, what are the initiatives that are being done to reduce pollution to an extreme level?
Well, we have renewable energy. So what we do is basically we improve the management of energy regardless of
All right.
office, homes, and also we do risk management in terms of disasters that may strike and preemptive measures. It's done throughout the nation. And we also share what we do with other countries.
All right.
And sorry, in our office secretariat, I came here, and in the summer it's very cold. I said, I'm not going to wear a jacket in office. So raise the temperature 2-3 degrees, and our bills, energy bills, came down by 25-30%.
All right.
You know, be comfortable. You don't have to feel cold. You know,
Yeah.
in your
That
office.
is true.
Yeah.
That's true. You see, as you said,
Little
little
things,
initiatives
little
need to be
things.
taken,
Yes.
and the result can be magnificent in different fields, science, technology, innovation, any other. I mean, the society will improve as a result of it, and that is how different countries work together
Yes.
to bring about that changes
There's
in
one
their
thing-
communities.
there's one
so
thing
Turkey
will help us in.
Yes, please. I would like you to tell us that.
It's-
Halit Ergin and H.E.A.
Sorry?
H.E.A. Cultural Heritage Preservation. If you can throw some light on that, please.
Well, there are lots of things to talk about. This is the chicken and egg thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Good technology, good science brings good society, and good society also brings about good science. we are neglecting a lot of fields like humanities and law and social sciences. Now, some people say, what does this have to do with the solar power and very nice things that the scientists do? Let's assume that there are 5 ways of doing a thing. In our legislative laws, we can take 2 paths. We can say these 2 are legal, or we can take the second path and say these 3 are illegal. Now, there is no difference in taking the 2 paths. Now, invent a 6th way of doing things. If you say only these 2 are legal, automatically the 6th new innovation is automatically illegal. And that just puts a barrier on disseminating knowledge and innovation in your society. So even how you perceive your law is going to change how science impacts your life, how innovation is going to impact your life.
How you perceive your law, Dr. Shukat sir, that's very important because different countries have their
My
different
law or
laws.
lawyers?
No, laws and regulations, sir. Let's not go there. How do you precise laws and regulations or an international level so that the communities and organizations such as COMSTECH can work effectively and diligently?
We had a very good major suggestion from Dr. Ergin this morning. That one of the things we talk about high technology, transfers and so on. And so intellectual property rights must be respected, must be acknowledged. We must know how to do this. This is an important issue. So this is one way, the legal aspect. But the scientists are not very legal. So they don't know what, you don't know what comes out of the lab. But for example, stem cells, you know, stem cell manipulation. There's a lot of controversy, the ethics about it.
True.
And this issue has been there for 2,000 years. Socrates asked this question when you talk of morality. From law you come to morality. This is an ethics. Can morality be taught? You know, and there is a major issue. I don't know if my colleagues will agree with me or not on ethics and the social responsibility of scientists.
All right.
This has been a burning issue for many years, and there is a lot of fake science being done. We do not understand the moral consequences of what we do, and this should also become a part, scientific ethics, of education for scientists.
True, true. Scientific ethic is very important. I think ethics in any field is very important because that is how you work about under a certain framework, but properly and concisely. Very last quick question from all 3 of you. I'll start with you, Shahzad. How do you see the future of the H.E.A and the development of science, technology and innovation amongst your member countries? Very quick answer.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, Malaysia is on the verge of commercializing all R&D, not all, towards research and development outcomes. So we're hoping that we can share that with other member countries. And in particular, on the 12th and 13th of December, which is in Malaysia, we have this Malaysian Commercialization Year.
Great.
So member countries are invited, Asian countries are invited. That's where we share what we have done, and also other countries can share what they have done there.
All right, Dr. Ergin.
Thank you.
It's teamwork that really counts.
All right.
And what we are trying to do with COMSTECH is that we are trying to put all the OIC countries into our team to work in harmony. Once that is done, the future is very bright.
All right. A lot of responsibility on your shoulders
And
because the Secretariat is here. Dr.
one last comment, if you
Yes.
permit me.
Yes.
You deprived Pakistani researchers of money today. You asked us to shut down our mobile phones. Now, every time your mobile,
We were going
you know
live on
why?
the shows.
Every time you make a mobile phone call, 0.5% of that goes into the R&D fund.
Oh, all right.
You didn't know this?
No, I did not know that.
Lots of money.
So we
is
should
there.
make more phone calls,
And they
I
are
think.
very good. They are very good in supporting
all right.
research in universities.
All right. All right.
Every
Dr.
mobile phone.
Dr. Shukat, Ms. Shahnaz Shahizan and Dr. Arif Ergin, thank you so very much, all 3 of you. Very lively discussion, healthy debate on what science, technology and innovation brings not only to countries such as Pakistan, the 22 less developed countries as we talked about, but also to the general OIC framework and speaking on a much larger platform to different continents and to the world in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, the world, when it gets the proper innovation in science and technology, can work properly, diligently. We talked about pollution, one of the different aspects that can bring about a huge change in societies, and that is how societies can live and breathe normally and effectively. OmerKhalid bids you farewell from this episode of Views on News. We'll be back inshallah tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz and have a nice evening.